Hello, how is it going? Welcome. It is June 5th, 2024. This is the RambleCast. I'm your host, Cody Toombs. There is no Corbin with us today. He is out, as I understand, giving haircuts to pigeons. Look, I don't know what the man's doing with his time, but that is a choice. And look, pigeons need grooming too. It's a fact. Look it up. I think it's on Wikipedia. Anyway, so it's been I don't know. It's been a bit of a week. There's been things happening, but I wouldn't call it the biggest of tech news. It's been pretty dominated by some Microsoft stuff, but we're going to talk about something else first. Possibly the biggest event of the week. Yes, I'm going straight into newsy talk. But yeah, very possibly the biggest, most important thing that has happened this week. Spotify is refunding car thing owners because it's going to be killing off the car thing. Yes, it's true. If you bought one of these service-specific pieces of hardware and you're unhappy that you paid too much for a thing that's just there to play music for a service you already subscribe to, then you will get your money back. And as it turns out Spotify did the only thing they could after doing something like this. They're going to raise the price of Spotify forever. Yeah, that's true. That's exactly that's how they plan to pay for giving all those refunds. It sucks, but yeah, people who never bought a car thing, they're paying for the car thing. No, of course I'm kidding. Spotify is raising prices for reasons nobody cares about. I mean, it's actually true. No, Spotify is apparently going prices on some of its plans by as much as $3, making it, yes, now I believe, I could be wrong on this, but is this not actually going to make Spotify the most expensive music streaming service that there is? I admit I haven't double checked that, but let's point out the obvious here, and not even kidding. This is now approaching the point that, actually it's past the point where there are TV streaming services that don't cost as much as Spotify. So yeah, their monthly subscription is going to go from $11 to $12. Their Duo, which is for 2 accounts basically, is going to go from $15 to $17. And the family plan is going to go from $17 to $20 per month. Folks, I'm just saying, look, YouTube Music's got to be looking pretty snazzy right now. I don't care who likes their like AI generated playlists on Spotify. Like this stuff's starting to get wild. And why is Spotify doing this? Truthfully, I did not actually see the reason. Maybe I missed that. Let's see. They say to continue to invest in and innovate on our product features and bring users the best experience. I mean, I guess the question here becomes, is that extra $3 a month going to go towards app developers that, can actually make an okay app? Because time and time again, I honestly, I figured this was going to be a thing for a little while, but these days it's still true. People still complain about the app. Like, why? They've had time. They've heard the complaints. Like, how do people still have to complain about the app being kind of terrible? Yeah, anyway. I don't know. I'm not a Spotify user, so I can't really attest to this. Nevertheless, the reality is I'm sure they're just going to pay Joe Rogan more. So you got to raise prices. But that being said, yeah, they're raising prices. I'm sure the real reason for this, and let's also include Max in this condemnation, because they're going to be doing the exact same thing. The real reason for this is the executives want to see how much they can soak customers for. That's it. It's time to ask the question, how much will customers pay total? Like if they will pay say $12 a month, what are the odds they'll pay 13? Just watch. I'm gonna say it right now. Spotify's gonna raise its prices again next year. And if not possibly this year, I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen, but it could. But by next year, I'm gonna bet Spotify will have its, at least individual accounts will be up to 13, and we'll see the others going up some amount too. So yeah, not feeling too great on the direction that's going. And I mean, these are two services that both just hiked their prices and are doing it again. Yeah, honestly, I think that what we're also about to see is that this is about to become, well, it has been, but it's going to be like an industry-wide thing. If you have subscription services, expect to pay a little bit more for all of them in the next year. So, you know, if you have 5 subscription services, expect your monthly bills to go up probably about $10 in the next year. That's just my guess. I could be wrong. I'm not, but I could be. Okay, anyway, hello to chat. Let's see. David, you're one of the suckers who got the car thing during the fire sale. I mean, on the plus side, at least you're presumably getting a refund, I would imagine. Now that I think about it, I didn't look, but I wonder what happens to people who bought them secondhand. I hadn't even really thought much about that, but I mean, that's the classic issue with a lot of other stuff, is if you bought things secondhand, there were a lot of situations where you were kind of just left out in the cold. Okay, just maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see it in a quick glance. Anyway, let's see. YouTube Premium with music sounds very lovely. Diablo is what I use. Granted, I don't listen to a lot of music, but when I do, honestly, it's not bad. The only real thing that kind of sucks about it is the auto playlist, or sort of like in the moment playlists that it can generate. Not that great. It still has that tendency of starting you with one music genre, and over like all of a sudden somewhere after like 10 songs, it's like, you know what, we think you want to hear this other genre, so we're just gonna transition you to that. Okay, thanks, bye. Teehee. Let's see. David, pay for the family plan currently, thinking about dropping it. Sorry, mom. Oof. Well, hey, I mean, would she complain about getting YouTube ad free? Just saying. Awesome. Biggest issue with YouTube Music is would like to not have to do 6 screen taps to get podcasts on Android Auto. Do you? Okay, admittedly I don't listen to podcasts on YouTube Music, so I haven't seen that. But I take it you mean the menu system is just that deep to get to them. And whether that's the case or not, I'll just say, why are you using YouTube Music for it? Genuine question. I have complaints about every podcast app that I've tried, but Pocket Casts, at least, like, it is a app dedicated to podcasts, and therefore, at least in terms of like Android Auto, I don't mind pulling that up and just using it directly. And I imagine most podcasts have Android Auto support at this stage, so, or sorry, podcast apps. So I would imagine pick any of them and use that instead. Plus, YouTube Music, like, the interface can't be that good for podcasts. Come on. There's no way. Like, literally no way. It cannot be good enough. Let's see. Remember when stuff was less than a cup of coffee a month? Those are the days. It's kind of that classic, like, remember when movie tickets were under $10? Like, I actually remember movie tickets being, like, just as a thing, movie tickets would be like $7, and we complained about that being expensive. Yeah. Now streaming services are, music streaming services are crazy expensive, and TV streaming is quickly going up, and everything else. We're in this weird race to see, well, like Diablo said, we're in a race to see who angers the best, but we're in a race to see who can soak their customers for as much as possible. It's terrifying, but it's true. We're eventually, just wait. Oh God, just wait. There will come a point where somebody has to say, or someone starts calling anyone a whale if they just so happen to have like more than 2 TV streaming services and a music streaming service. That's whale territory. It's coming. It's coming. Anyway, so that's bleak. So let's see. Remember, I guess in this economy it still might be. And yeah, Austin, Deserter Corbin. Well, hey, you know, those pigeons need their haircuts. It's a thing. Open source it, Spotify, I dare you. Oh my God, can you imagine if they open source the app? It's a little bit like the Twitter app. Remember when they brought in the developer Falcon to fix the Twitter app, and he was there for a while, and basically he didn't say it this way, but he kind of left saying there's no fixing this thing. I mean, that's, again, he didn't say that, but it was pretty clear he was not happy with the way Twitter was managed back then. Can you imagine how he'd feel today? And I didn't even bring it up, but or I'm not going to make it into a topic, but just notably, Twitter's new policies on adult content and violent messaging. Loosely put, both are just now allowed. Like, cheers, we welcome you to Twitter. Well, X, whatever. Oh, this world is fun. Hello, T. Pharrell. How's it going? And of course, hellos, I didn't name everyone off, but hello to Diablo, David, Austin, and Carson. Let's see. Austin, lived the Pocket Cast life until the NPR broke everything and sold it off. Yeah, I'm not going to deny. I think the app took a noticeable drop in quality after, or well, during NPR. It is what it is. I don't think they're, look, I didn't think the app was as good as a lot of other people thought. I've always had my complaints about Pocket Casts. I think they were doing a few things wrong from the beginning. But look, the app is what it is. It's fine. Like, I continue to use it because I don't want to bother switching to something else. And there's probably better out there, but I haven't been motivated to try anything. And to this day, I will probably never get to this, not unless I find a team of people who want to work together on this with me. But I have ideas for a podcast app that I think would quickly dominate. The only problem is, I'm not sure that there's a market to corner anymore, because slowly but surely podcasts are kind of getting chewed up a little bit by Spotify, a little bit by YouTube, a little bit by, well, Apple's trying to chew them up again. And then you have a couple of others that don't want to let stuff go. So, and the whole podcasting industry's gotten weirder over the last however long. So I'm not sure I would ever actually go forward with that, but I want to. There are definitely some things I want in a podcast app that I've never seen anybody do, and that's what makes me interested. All right. Anyway, awesome. No, just put tiny hats on those pigeons. Look. I think we need to dispel a myth. Pigeons, they're all about the big hats. I know. Small heads, you'd think small hats, but no, they I mean, the hats still have to be smaller, but no, they're pigeons like the big brim. If they do not have sombrero level hats going on, I mean, proportional to their size, of course, but if they don't have a big brim, they're not into it. And look, I know it hasn't been, you don't think about it, but there's a reason. You see, the thing is, pigeons are cursed by the fact that other pigeons tend to fly over their heads. You know what that means, right? Think about it. Those big brimmed hats, they serve a purpose. Diablo gets it. He knows. Oh god, this one is taking all kinds of turns. So yeah, anyway, streaming service is going to be, oh no. Austin with the Audubon Society, is that what this is? Those pigeons wearing cowboy hats, they're no laughing matter. See, that hat's too small. Wow. Okay. So I will say, seriously though, big brim hats, that you got to protect yourself from the other pigeons. It's a thing. But anyway, so we're gonna do a bit of a weird transition here, but let's talk about this one real quick, because why turn down an opportunity to mock Chrome OS, which Google seems to be embracing. Google has now acquired a company called Cameo. At least I'm assuming, I think pretty safely that that's how it's pronounced, because why not? Anyway, Cameo has basically made wine, but not wine. It is a virtualization platform for running Windows apps. And Google has acquired this so that they can integrate it into Chrome OS. Look, and I think anyone here knows already that this is very obviously because Chrome OS, nobody wants to build apps for it. It is at this point a hodgepodge of virtualization containers that run Android apps and Linux apps. Now it's also going to run Windows apps. So yeah, that is the strategy. Rather than get developers to actually build for your platform, you're just going to keep doing everything possible to not steal, but I guess is this computeral appropriation? Computeral appropriation. I'm gonna stick with that. It's terrible. I regret saying it entirely, but it's a thing now. Computeral appropriation. Okay, so anyway, I have no idea how well this is gonna run. I'm not gonna get too deep into any of the severe logic on this, but I am going to kind of call out a couple of thoughts that do jump to my mind. The first of which is Windows apps have taken so many forms and so many looks. They run on so many different UI platforms, and I mean, at this stage, I kind of wonder what Cameo's limits are. And I'm assuming that this is literally like Windows apps as opposed to, say, games and stuff like that. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. I'm not really sure. But if it is Windows apps, obviously this is leaving out a big section of a market that I'm sure would be very interested in games. Not that there's much Google can do about that. It's just a fact of life, and eventually I'm sure they'll try to take on games too. But what I think is more interesting is, as a developer, I can't say that I know a lot of other people building Windows apps these days. Because over the last few years, well, over the last decade, really, well, no, wait, 2 decades, slowly but surely, all the Windows developers have been becoming web developers. They're building web services that people run through a browser. You know, a browser that not Microsoft makes. And as a result, there are whole companies where they don't have a single Windows app on any of their Windows machines. They run web apps, or the Windows apps that they run are just like employee monitoring tools and a few things for like network management. A lot of companies don't bother with Windows apps anymore. I mean, I did Windows development for many years, and it's not like that has completely dried up, but it's certainly less than it used to be. It has really dwindled, which raises the question, is Google's, you know, to borrow Steve Jobs' old saying, is Google skating to where the puck's gonna be, where the puck is, or where the puck was a decade earlier? Because it sort of feels like they're really behind on this one. And, you know, I'm not saying there aren't still Windows apps out there. There obviously are. But as a Mac user, I haven't felt like I'm missing out on a Windows app in a really long time. In fact, Mac OS, I think, might be the only desktop platform where platform-specific apps are really still actively, really active. And maybe I'm wrong. Anyone, I'm sure, I know that the room is filled with a lot of Windows users. Who here feels like Windows has still got a good app, like a vibrant app ecosystem going on? I'm sure that you might need one, or might want to have one for like compressing some files. Well, compressing and decompressing files. You might want to have one for, I don't know, instant messaging. You might want to have one for a couple of other things, but the list seems like it's really gotten very short. And the only apps that I can really think of that people very actively use, it starts falling into stuff like Adobe Suite, Microsoft Office, maybe a video editor. I'm sure there are a few others, but that list, it raises a question of me, because a lot of these are famously the kinds of things that don't run very well on virtualization or emulation platforms. Austin, try to avoid native apps whenever possible. Tend to only use open source apps that are on all platforms if it's an option. Yeah, and that's, I mean, look, being a Mac user, when I first switched to Mac, that was one of the things I made a very adamant point of. I didn't want to run anything that I had. Like if I switch back to Windows or for several years, for several years after I switched to a Mac, I continued to still use Windows kind of evenly. So I made a point of picking only stuff I could use on both platforms. Or, usually I tried to go with open source. Sometimes I couldn't do that, but, something like Sublime Text was on all platforms, even if it wasn't open source. And I would try to use a lot of stuff on the web. Because, I mean, I was one of those people. I was running Windows, Mac OS, and Android. And I did have an iPhone, but, that wasn't the primary. But through all of that, I mean, I was one of those people who, if I tried to do everything on different apps on different platforms, it would have been a huge hassle. So, that's not to say I didn't use a few Mac OS apps, but I didn't use a lot of them. And even now, I look at everything I have running, and, there are a few things that are macOS specific, like a text expander, which I imagine is fairly unsurprising. There aren't too many of those that are cross-platform. But, yeah, even in my dock, I see in my dock there are 2 apps. Yeah, just 2 that are not cross-platform. Arguably 3 if you want to count the Apple script editor that's open. I have that open running a script. But yeah, that's it. I don't have any other custom stuff, at least not running right now, and I don't think generally speaking. So yeah, the thing is, I think Windows apps have also kind of taken that road where, sure, you might be using some stuff cross-platform, but for the most part, it seems like a lot of it has moved to the web, which makes sense. Of course, a lot of companies want to develop for the web because they want to support everything, but they don't want to build something 2 or 3 times. So it's a reasonable choice for most. Not for everybody, but for enough. Anyway, so let's see. Win32 can eat it. Oh man, if Win32 would just, I assume Win32 itself technically has gone away, but the API is still kicking and screaming, even though it's moved to 64-bit. But yeah, Windows API is a mess. Anyway, using that as kind of a transition, let's talk about the fact that Windows 10, like a zombie, has risen from the dead, or sort of risen from the dead. Microsoft is going to resurrect Windows 10 beta testing. By the way, it's occurring to me in part because there's no Corbin, that I'm flying through these topics. I actually thought I'd be like an hour in before I got to this part. So there aren't too many left, just as a heads up. If anyone has anything else they want me to hit, might have to. Let's see. Anyway, so as I was saying, Windows 10 is coming back, and even though it is actually slated to be murdered in about, what is this, 16 months, at basically the end of 2025, they have they're actually reopening the Windows 10 beta so that they can test, quote, new features. And this is exactly what it sounds like. They're basically going to just implement some features in both Windows 10 and I'm assuming Windows 11 and run them through their beta channels. What stands out to me is the reason for doing something like this is they don't have enough users on Windows 11. At least not enough people in the beta channels, I would imagine, but probably in general, they don't have enough users on Windows 11. So they're inviting Windows 10 users in. The question that jumps out at me though is if you're in that position where you don't have enough people on Windows 11 yet, is that not a sign that maybe you've got bigger problems going on? I don't know. That's my read on it. But at this stage, I also kind of question, like, what features are they really going to be rolling out to Windows 10? Because they've hyped up how much a lot of their new feature development relies on Windows 11. Various features that they've like deep down rooted in the base of Windows 11. They've claimed a lot of that stuff is how they're building a lot of the new features that are going to be in development from this point on. So what's going on here? Are they backporting that stuff to Windows 10? Or I think more likely a lot of that stuff just never actually required Windows 11. You know, sort of like how Google puts out phones and says, oh, here's something that's exclusive to this handful of phones, or, you know, this latest model of phone, and then within a week it's been hacked and can run on everything. Kind of feels like this has become each company's new way of saying, basically, please upgrade, please spend money, upgrade with us. We need you to upgrade. And in reality, that's not reality. Wow, I feel like I'm hitting with a hard cynic-y. But no, this is kind of becoming the thing. We're probably going to see. I have a bit of a hunch that we're actually going to see Windows 10 sort of casually stay updated for a little bit past its expected date for death. Either that, or Microsoft was hyping up how it was going to have kind of long-term support that they want people to pay for. I have a bit of a funny feeling that they'll probably still try to do that, but that program might, in part or in full, exist just so that they can continue supporting Windows 10 sort of both officially and unofficially. Because it's pretty clear people are not upgrading. People are not moving on at the rate that Microsoft wants them to. So this is probably the future that I think they're going to keep going with. So let's see. Microsoft and update security, have fun. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, but I have a funny feeling that Windows 10 is somehow going to become their new Windows XP, really. It's going to be the thing that lives on for... look, I'll just say it. I think people are going to be running Windows 10 in 5 years. Like, a significant number of people are still going to be running Windows 10 in 5 years. So, yay! Come 2030, you can probably look forward to there still being like a 20 to 25% Windows 10 population. Actually, I bet it's more than that. And how sick would it be if it's going to be like 50%? It could. That's actually a very plausible thing. Anyway. So, yeah, let's turn this into the scariest topic of the week. And I dare say, other than politics, this is the topic that has been kind of dominating the news cycle for the last week. Copilot. Or sorry, not Copilot, but Recall. So for those who haven't seen it, and I didn't want to pull up links to all of it, but for those that haven't seen it, Kevin Beaumont has been on a tear. He got a hold of Recall and started playing with it, and oh boy, it has been disastrous. Recall is a security nightmare. It's a privacy nightmare. It is effectively a absolute catastrophe for Microsoft at this stage. So we talked about it last week. At least I believe that was last week. And the basic story, as Corbin and I kind of landed on it, was, look, in its form as marketed by Microsoft, it's already a bit of a privacy danger zone, because it is a long-term database, or at least semi-long-term database, that keeps track of everything that you do, at least as well as it can using a screen reader. And it's something that if anyone else sits down at your computer and has access to this, they can just look up a lot of things that you've done. And it's searchable, so they can look for all kinds of things that you may or may not have done. As a result, the practical potential of this to be a privacy issue is actually pretty high. And it does stand the chance of recording passwords and things like, passwords, bank account information, all kinds of, details that you don't want getting out into the world. So it also poses a security threat. Well, in the last week, we've been learning all kinds of things. Okay, so a few things that were already somewhat known. The database that it maintains is a plain text database. It is just a SQLite database that's just recording tons and tons of phrases with enough data so that it can basically point back to some place in history. You can search that, filter it. You've got some access and options for being able to work around in that. What has also been discovered is that it is also a database that any app can access. Now, one might think, oh no, if I install untrusted apps on my computer, they're going to do bad things. But wait, that's already a thing. Well, yeah, that's true. But now you actually have a thing that is recording everything that you do, so that if a malicious app gets installed on your computer, it doesn't just have access to things that happen after what you've installed. Like if you accidentally get a keylogger installed on your computer, anything that happens after that keylogger could be at risk. Now you have a system in place that gives that keylogger a full historical log of all kinds of things that you've done. So that's problematic. Not only that, but Kevin Beaumont also discovered that it doesn't just have to be apps installed on your profile. You don't even have to be logged in. Apparently, apps, something about this, like where it's placed, where the database is located, I believe, or maybe it's a security weakness somewhere in Windows. I'm not really sure. Sorry, I only read so much of all of these. But apparently, if, let's say, someone else is logged in their profile and they install something that decides it's going to start reading that data, whether knowingly or not, they can actually, those apps can access the database for any other profile. So this is also a security disaster. Apparently, it's also possible to remotely Or, well, I don't know how remotely. I take back that part. I'm not sure how remotely, but apparently it is possible in some way to remotely enable recall. Now, I'm not sure what that entails. I'm not sure if this is a vulnerability or if it's something that's intended to be this way or what. So I apologize. I could very well have this, or I could be making a bigger deal out of this than I should be. But evidently there are ways to turn on recall even if you're not actually at that computer. Now, maybe it's that someone has to install software on that computer that enables it. Maybe it's something that you can do over the network. I do not know that. But apparently it's possible to turn on recall basically without a user's consent. At this stage, I feel like I should have like some bourbon in here. Because somebody at Microsoft had to be drunk. Had to be drunk. Look, I know a lot of Microsoft developers. I've known quite a few over the years. And hell, every time that I've gone to Microsoft for any reason whatsoever, I go out to dinner with a few of them. I know a lot of them have specifically had to sit through like whole training courses about security because Microsoft got very, very deep and serious about security, which makes me wonder how the hell this happened. Yeah, this is crazy disaster level stuff. And that leads me to kind of it leads me to a message that this link, and thanks to Diablo for summoning this one up. Diablo, prioritizing security above all else. Yeah, that's not a thing. That's definitely not a thing. Anyway, this hands-on that Android Authority did, which, by the way, Android Authority doing a hands-on of something that is uniquely a Microsoft Windows feature, feels kind of like Android Police doing, well, everything Android Police does. But anyway, so Hadley Simmons makes a point that I think I made. I could be wrong. Maybe I didn't end up saying this, but I know I was wanting to. But look, it is a cool feature. Recall is not a bad idea. It actually isn't. Genuinely. It's a hard thing to do safely. It's a hard thing to do right. But the idea is not bad. I can't tell you how many times I've thought, oh, I remember seeing such and such thing like 3 days ago. What was that? I want to check it out again. I want to see that again. Look, it's a real thing. That's something that I think fairly often is, oh, I want to see that thing again. Browser history has been a way to somewhat summon those things back up. Though, to be fair, browser history is kind of hard to work with if you don't know what text to type in and you visit enough sites. Because, oh boy, my browser history on any given day is like probably a good 1,000 pages. Maybe that's an exaggeration. That's probably an exaggeration, but it's a lot. It's definitely well into the hundreds. So, you know, this is kind of one of those problems where there's not a good solution that doesn't expose you to some privacy and security issues. But you got to do better than this. You have to do better than this. This has to be encrypted. It has to not be available to other apps. And it absolutely must not be a thing that people can access casually. Those are all hard requirements in my book. But it's a thing that should exist. If Microsoft can nail down the privacy and security issues, then this is a thing that should exist. I actually don't have a problem with that idea. I just think the way it's implemented is really, really profoundly stupid. And this hands-on on Android Authority, it does point out that Recall is maybe not working as well as it could. It lacks a lot of features. It lacks a lot of function. It's not particularly reliable with any of the stuff that it tries to do. It makes a lot of mistakes, and yeah, it is what it is. That said, it also can be a really cool idea. It takes advantage of some of the technology that we've seen in the past. Like, one of the examples that they brought up was looking for a dog in some old Google searches, and it found images that you don't even necessarily notice the dog was in. Like, that's some Google Photos stuff from 5 years ago. That was an incredible feature that I think everyone universally agreed they loved that. And very few people were screaming about privacy and security back then. Obviously, plenty of people still called out Google for that stuff. But I don't remember anybody saying, oh my God, what if somebody gets into your photos? Like, they're going to be able to look up your passwords. No, they aren't. Probably not. They're going to be able to look up all these things and be able to steal your identity. I'm sure some people said that, but very few. Because Google Photos, look, outside of the possibility of maybe some private photos, most of that stuff wasn't likely to be that big of a deal. Here we're talking about you type something into a web page, or you're browsing to a site that maybe you really can't let people know about. Maybe you are, I don't know. I'm not going to try to speculate too much, but you get the idea. It's a bigger deal here. It's more. It's sort of like, I remember when Google Chrome had the whole thing about, yeah, we store your passwords in plain text because who cares? If something is on your computer that can access your passwords already, then you're already screwed. Like, there's no saving that, and nothing we do will be able to encrypt those passwords in a way that that another app developer can't just decrypt. So we may as well just leave them unencrypted. And of course, people rightfully called out Google for that, so they eventually encrypted them. And as they said, and they weren't wrong, people promptly just built a decryption look right at those passwords anyway. But hey, they made it harder for anyone who was going to be lazy. But then I compare that to a phone. Your modern smartphone these days, this thing is, look, your whole life goes through this thing now. Your call history, your desktop didn't have that before. The sites that you browse, well, sure, you did that on desktop too, but you're probably doing it more on your phone now. The things that you take pictures of, yeah, that definitely is all going through the phone. Probably not touching your desktop anymore, though. In fact, the things that you do on your desktop are a lot more limited now because you now do more of it on your phone. Your phone became that ultimate privacy point. But the desktop is also a pretty private location, and you can't necessarily risk it, especially when you figure that you probably have a lot of work things going on your desktop. So at this stage, I think Microsoft has to be more careful with this, more thoughtful, and try to show some common sense, I suppose. Also, we're gonna quickly fix my exposure level. That looks a little more like it. I no longer look mega dark. Yeah, saving recovery code, which, funny you mentioned that. Every time you set up two-factor authentication, And it shows you recovery codes that you can use. You know, those usually 10 recovery codes. Yeah. Recall will also be scraping those. Anyway, so look, it's a cool feature. I think that there's value to what Microsoft wants to do here, but it's also kind of doomed because they came out with it, and it feels like it was built. I mean, I haven't used it, but the way I've heard it described, it feels like it was built as a side project. It feels like someone's demo, and a early tech demo at best, not something that strikes you as a well-developed system, not something that screams secure or private, not something that is built elegantly or smartly, but rather something that was built just to show that they can do it. In the year 2035, when my government issued PC is finally running Windows 11, I doubt this will be enabled. It's funny because of how many qualifiers and how deep that statement goes. But yeah, this is... Look, Microsoft likely just killed this feature because they came out with it before it was ready. And logically, nobody should trust it. I don't think many people are going to trust it, frankly. And why should they? It has proven itself to not be a very trustworthy feature. So, yeah. Diablo. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of IT departments are just going to, as part of their like default settings, I think they will just make a hard block on this feature, because it makes sense. They should. It risks too much in the sense of corporate security, in the sense that it could leak source code or passwords. Austin, I was actually going to suggest the same thing. The only way around this is they basically need to rename it, get rid of the name Recall, call it something else, actually pull this feature back, make it just disappear, don't launch it at all, but continue working on it, clean it up, and relaunch it again in a year, this time with a completely different name, a completely different look. Pitch it a different way. It's hard to pitch this too differently, but pitch it as the thing where your computer understands things that you want based on what it's seen, and it helps you get them done. And as a part of that, history is one of those features. There you go. I just did your work for you. That's how to pitch this thing. It can be a smarter thing. It can be a more thorough thing. But you gotta make the hit. You gotta take this stuff out of play and rebrand it. Because as long as this is named Recall, I think search history alone is going to ensure nobody wants to enable this. And seeing as it is also, by the way, enabled by default, and you have to intentionally opt out of it, I think this is going to be one of those things that people are going to quickly learn to disable anytime Windows gets set up. And that should be a thing that Microsoft is afraid of. All right. So that was a lot. Also, actually, now that I've said that, I'm also just going to say it. This is also a situation where I think Microsoft should be really worried about Windows. And I know that's a weird take, but they should really be worried about Windows, because the more they put in that people feel they have to disable literally in like day one, or like as soon as they set it up, the more people are going to feel like they just can't have Windows. And that's something Microsoft needs to be afraid of. Because if the more people who shy away from Windows, the more likely they start losing their dominance in other areas. But speaking of AI doing wacky things, and look, I have to bring it up. Nothing. The Nothing phone. It's still a curse that it's just begging to be talked about, I suppose. So for those who haven't heard about this, Carl Pei is back at it again. He is telling everybody about how AI is going to be the future of Nothing phone, and basically they want to shockingly kill apps. Diablo exactly. So the basic premise here, and Carl Pei did the thing. Okay, I don't know how many of you saw the Rabbit R1 CoffeeZilla video, where CoffeeZilla was basically just he showed the Rabbit R1 CEO. I'm not going to say up on stage. He was in a stage, but where it showed him talking about all the amazing things that the Rabbit R1 was going to do, and before that, all of the things that his cringy cryptocurrency game thing was going to do. And the guy was basically just spitting out buzzwords. Carl Pei, that's what this is. He's promising the world, and he's dropping every name in the book. He mentions Nintendo because of course you do. That totally makes sense. He mentioned OpenAI, or wait, did he? No, sorry, take that back. Maybe he didn't mention it, but it was fairly obvious it was that the demo they showed off was using it. I believe he mentioned a few others. Now I'd have to go back and look at it. Anyway, all he did was basically promise to bring AI to phones, and they showed some AI demos, or supposedly AI demos, but they don't do a lot. Austin saying Carl Pei is definitely grifter. I mean, it certainly looks that way. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say it for just because you never know when it'll get litigious, but it doesn't seem like he's on the level. Nevertheless, the promise here is that the Nothing phone and presumably smartphones in general are going to become smart enough to start using your apps for you, and that they're going to effectively take away the need for apps, or make them hidden from your use, which is an interesting promise to make. We've kind of actually seen that happening already. I mean, half of the apps that I use, when I use them, I'm usually interacting with them in the notification shade, or at least that's where about half of their interface kind of appears to me. So I feel like I already don't use apps nearly as much as I used to, which is also interesting because one of the things Carl Pei said is that the apps are gaining too much power. Really? Is that a thing that's happening? Does anybody feel like apps have gained too much power? Because I really just use a podcast app, a browser, let's see, I guess the YouTube app, I don't know. As I look through, I see a whole lot of things where, sure, so I use a few apps, but they serve pretty specific purposes, and I don't think it's a power thing that's at issue here. It's literally just I want to have a proper interface to be able to use the thing. So yeah, I'm feeling like that's not the thing. Austin, waiting for Gemini Android slices for apps. Yes, that's actually something I truly am expecting. I think that what we're probably going to see is a lot of the AI assistants starting to pop up with basically, we don't think that you need to open the whole app to do this, but if you have an app installed that gives you something, we'll give you the most relevant part of that. Not all apps are WeChat. Ugh. Oh, but Elon would sure like them to be. Anyway, so I kind of thought this is look, this is grifter territory. It's not that I don't think AI is going to do all of these things. It's more that I don't think nothing's going to have anything to do with it. And more importantly, I don't think that we're going to see apps going away anytime soon. And especially not in the way that certainly he's suggesting that they would. Rather, I think more and more apps are going to become... I don't know how well anyone necessarily remembers this, but in kind of the late 2000s, it became this whole thing where everyone talked about the web as APIs. All websites, all social media companies in particular were big for this. The notion was that they would all just be big APIs and people would be able to build apps to connect to your service, and those apps would bring value to users, and that the developers making those apps would be able to kind of craft their own version of the experience with your service, and somehow everybody would make money. That last part didn't work out so well, which is why Facebook killed their API very early. Twitter took a very long time to do it, but eventually did it. And a lot of other companies just never even started that. Now, we could be on a collision course to the same sort of narrative, where, Carl Pei is saying that an AI will use your phone for you. It'll use the apps somewhere in the background. You won't even notice it. You won't see it. You'll just issue a command, and lo and behold, the thing will happen, and then it might pop up a confirmation or something, or whatever. Whether or not we get to that point, maybe. But what I do think is going to happen is we're probably going to get to a point where you'll be able to ask your phone for something. It will probably do certain steps of it, and it will show you the rest. It'll do whatever it needs to, and then it'll pop up a screen, either a slice or a whole screen, depending on circumstance, and it'll let you do whatever the human part of it needs to be. So, we'll see, but I don't quite buy into Carl Pei's predictions, or for that matter, his promises. And as a bit of a side note, I can't actually talk too much about this. I think anyone could guess why. There's a thing under embargo, which is dumb because honestly, little details about this thing have already leaked into the world. And I feel comfortable saying this much about it because nobody here, no one is going to have any clue what I'm talking about. I'm not really breaking any secret with what I'm saying. But suffice to say, I'm getting a review unit that that's what I'm referencing. It is still under embargo for a few weeks. It really doesn't matter that I'm saying this much, trust me. Anyway, this review unit coming under embargo. It includes an AI module. Now I've looked at some of their press materials. The rabbit heart too. That'd be funny. That'd be so hilarious. But no. Anyway, this AI module that they are promising. I've looked through press materials. As far as I can tell, everything that it promises to do is stuff that the companion app already did. As far as I can tell, it doesn't do it better. As far as I can tell, it doesn't let you do things without the companion app. In fact, I can't find a single thing that the AI module does based on what they have told me so far. Nothing. And funny enough, I'm going to spoil this little detail, which I'm trying very hard to think of a polite way to say this in the review. But I feel comfortable saying it much more honestly here. Here's the thing. The product, I should note, the product that this is going to be, it is got the full name of the previous iteration of this product, but they added AI onto the end. That's so, you know, it is. I'm just going to use. I'm going to use this example to illustrate. This is obviously not it, but you know, whatever. Imagine if you were getting the Pixel 8 Pro, and then Google came out with the Pixel 8 Pro AI. That's the type of naming thing that just happened with this product. So it's very clearly the previous iteration of the product. They did make some very minor tweaks, but just stick with me on this. The AI module only exists to be in constant pain. I mean, that fits. Yeah. Anyway, so the new model that is coming is the exact same price as the previous model. It also has bundles that include some extra accessories. Those are the exact same price as the bundles that also existed before. However, they now include. Now the base model does not include this. Let me note that. The base model does not include the AI module, but those bundles do. Again, they're the exact same price as the bundles from before, and they now include the AI module. So whatever this thing does, whatever this thing is, it didn't increase the price enough that they felt a need to actually increase the price of the bundles. Which begs the question, what the hell does it do? Because the press materials don't seem to indicate what it does that's any different than what the app could already do. The product price hasn't gone up, but they've included a whole new gadget in the bundles. What am I supposed to take from this other than it is total BS? That's the only explanation I've got. This thing has to be total BS. And look, the product, setting aside the AI module, I'm sure the product's actually going to be perfectly good. I'm not going to say what it is. You'll figure it out. I'm pretty confident once I share any details about it, or if the review. I don't think it's going to get posted on the embargo day, but I can try. But I think it'll be fairly obvious what I'm talking about if anyone catches when this thing pops up. Anyway, I'm sure the product's going to be perfectly good. It's just this AI module. I am 95% certain already. It is a full-blown dishonest gimmick. I think they just want people to have a thing that they can attach to their to the main gadget, and I guess maybe presumably turn it on. I don't actually know if this thing has a battery in it. I have reasons to actually doubt that. I can't say why, but I don't think there's a battery in it. And it seems to attach magnetically, but I don't know that the attach point has any sort of leads. So I don't know if it even gets power. I don't know. I have a lot I need to check out with this thing, but I'm pretty sure that this is just a piece of plastic with a couple of things to make it look like it might do something. And I think it's just a placebo. I think it is just pure fake, or like a pure fake marketing gimmick. and they just wanted to be able to re-announce their previous product with AI. Maybe I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. I genuinely want to be wrong about that. Don't think I am, but I want to be. And believe me, even as I say this, I keep thinking, and I've been thinking about this for the last day. I really kind of want to email their PR agent and say, hey, could you tell me what scenarios I can test this specific AI module in to see how it performs better? Can you give me a specific way to show what it does better? I'm betting anything that they can. They're probably just going to shine me on with some marketing speak and hope that I go away. But we'll see. Anyway, so that is your daily reminder that AI is probably here to stay and also should not stay. Because AI gimmicks are going to be constant and all over the place. Let's see. So as far as I know, let's see. Oh yeah, Diablo. I saw this. I skipped past it, but it is funny. I mean, this is an old kind of problem, but yeah, the humane AI pin, they've now warned people to stop using the charging case like immediately, because apparently it's a fire hazard. There is a possibility that the battery will ignite and cause a fire, which, okay, look, it happened to Samsung in its own way. It's happened to a few other products. It happens. They just happen to go with a cheap battery manufacturer. That's, yes, it's on them, but this in and of itself is not damning for an AI product. This is just some bad, well, not bad luck. It's a bad decision that they went with a crappy manufacturer, but yeah, it happens. Let's see, Austin. Apple really should have jumped on the anti-AI bandwagon instead of trying to deal with licensing agreements for AI. Do a repeat of their privacy strategy. I agree, but here's, wow, this could actually, I don't think this is going to become a deep statement, but I don't want it to be, but, and when I say deep statement, I don't mean deep thinking statement. I mean, just, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on this. So I'll just say it like this. When cryptocurrencies happened, look, it was obviously a fad. And I'm not saying that they're dead. And I've even said in the past, and I still maintain this today, if a correctly done, genuinely well done, thought out cryptocurrency comes into existence and it gets the right people backing it for the right reasons, fine. But for the most part, cryptocurrencies happened, and it was very obvious from a very early stage that something was shady, that there are scams left and right, not just using cryptocurrencies, but the cryptocurrencies in many cases themselves are scams. This is all absolutely without doubt. That said, the crypto thing has been compared too much to AI. AI, love it or hate it, it's not a scam. Now again, scams happen with AI. There are plenty of scams happening with AI. Humane, it certainly seems like a scam, but it's hard to be sure. Rabbit R1, plainly without question, is a scam. That's now actually been proven. And there will be plenty of others. There are going to be multiple scams. But AI is not going anywhere. As a technology, as an approach to solving problems, it's here to stay. Like it is real. So if Apple had come out with a hard anti-AI approach to their position, any reasonable person would have come away from that saying, nope, you're wrong. You are wrong. Like, you can't be anti-AI as a holistic thing. And it would have made Apple look bad. Like, Apple can come out hard against cryptocurrencies. They haven't, which is kind of problematic in my book. But they could do that. That's fine. And they can come out hard against privacy issues. Which is always amusing because Apple was one of the famous abusers of privacy because they were stalking literally their entire user base without telling them. Not to mention doing some other pretty hinky stuff to their user base without telling them. Even Google was more transparent about the fact that they were recording everywhere you go. But, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, Apple could come out against that because people can certainly collectively come together and say, well, we don't think that we really have much privacy these days, but we can still value it when a company says that they're not going to spy on us. That's an easy thing to come out for, and you can make that argument and people generally agree with it. It's a lot harder to do when you're coming out against a burgeoning technology that, you know, many of its uses are garbage, but many of its uses won't be. So Apple they probably could have handled it better, but it would have been a much bigger risk if Apple had come out against AI, at least come out too hard against AI. Let's see. Okay, sorry, just quickly reading down. Apple, hey, we don't use AI, we just use really smart algorithms. And for what it's worth, that's kind of a narrative that I've kind of gripped onto. Is a lot of the stuff that people call AI today, it was the exact same algorithms that they were calling machine learning a few years back, and before that, a lot of it just wouldn't be called AI. That's what they were doing, but it wasn't called that. And I think what we've ended up with here is AI is kind of like drones. The term drone is actually wrong. If you ask any of those crazy hardcore not drone enthusiasts, but UAV enthusiasts, those people are going to tell you time and time again that the things DJI sells on store shelves, that those aren't drones. They're going to call them quadcopters, radio controlled this or that. They're going to call them different things, but they hate calling them drones. The thing is, that's the term that everyone latched onto. It's a term that works. It's a term that people like and understand. So it's a term that's not going anywhere. Well, the same is true with AI. Years ago, we would have called a lot of this stuff machine learning. We probably should still call it machine learning, but it's AI. That's the term that's going to stick, and I don't think that that's a problem. Look, if what any particular thing is technically machine learning because that's the more accurate term, okay, you can specify that in the body of your explanation. But at the top level, you just call it AI because that's what every investor wants to see. Awesome. Exactly. People have no idea what AI is, and it's not really anything on its own. That's exactly it. The thing is, AI is... The way I guess the other way I would describe this, or a way I see it, is AI is to this market of intelligent algorithms and data what the term vehicle is to anything that we have on the road today. Vehicle does not describe anything in detail. The word vehicle does not tell you if a thing has tires. It doesn't tell you if it's a car or a truck or a motorcycle. It doesn't tell you if it can carry people. It doesn't tell you what its function is. It doesn't tell you anything except that most likely the thing moves. Vehicle is not a word that carries any sort of other meaning to it. It just tells you that a thing exists and it moves. It doesn't even have to have an engine. Hello, Lightning FG. How's it going? If it just giving you a heads up, this is a podcast day. Gaming happens on Saturday and Sunday. But if you're here for a tech podcast, welcome. Though that said, I'm also probably not going to go super long from here. Is it just me or Cody's lips out of sync with the audio? Oh boy. I don't have any idea how I would go about fixing that. I'm not seeing anything that should be causing it. It's just the AI lagging. I like that. Anyway, so the term vehicle doesn't mean anything in and of itself. AI, similar story. I mean, within AI, there are several subgroups of what people are calling AI. There are learning algorithms. There's machine learning. There's predictive algorithms. There are all kinds of things that, strictly speaking, they are AI. You don't even have to have training data to actually have something that can reasonably be called AI. Basically, any algorithm that is trying to accomplish something more than basically a linear process, that is AI. It is artificial intelligence. So, things that Google has been doing for 15 years, that was I don't know. Basically, Google's original search algorithm was a form of AI. PageRank was AI. But no one calls it that. No one has been calling it that because I don't have a good reason. Just no one did. So yeah, we're just in that place where these things don't mean a lot, but they also mean everything. Carson, in your opinion, AI is ML, but ML is not AI. I mean, I know what you're saying. Yeah. And that is, in my opinion, that is largely the truth, except I also tend to think of ML as part of the steps towards AI. It's a primary component of AI, but also, like Carson said, none of it's AI. What constitutes AI is different in everyone's definition of it because we all understand it differently, and it's also going to be different from situation to situation. It's kind of like that old question of how can you tell the difference between art and porn? And people came away basically saying, well, I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it. That's AI. We don't know what AI is, but we like to think that we can look at it and go, okay, yes, this thing is AI, this other thing is not. And like the line between ML and AI, that is so fuzzy and such a thin line. It's I mean, it's worth trying to find that line, but I think that line moves depending on where you look at it or where you find it. Also, I think it's worth noting that a lot of the built-in APIs that Apple and Google offer, if you've looked into any of them at all, pretty much all of them are being marketed as APIs for their like AI components. Yet, they are all marked as ML. At least everything I've seen, they all are called ML in the actual API. I believe the difference that they're kind of defining is it's AI if you're using one of their existing, if you use a model that they provide or that somebody provides, whereas ML is the thing that you might build the model on the device, or you might be using a really small model. At that point, they seem to more casually refer to that as ML. Which is all kind of hilarious. Okay, so Carson, for instance, team at work does some ML stuff, but wouldn't really call the stuff we're working on AI. Awesome. Data privacy laws, instead attempting to regulate AI. Yeah, that I guarantee is a big part of this. Is they're going to conveniently misunderstand and never really target ML, but they're definitely going to keep targeting AI. Yeah, AI just sounds cooler. It does. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that there's really a better answer. We're gonna see we're gonna see this stuff keeping silly and dumb, and it occurs to me that I'm still pointing to the thing where the battery went bad rather than the prime example of AI just being a marketing gimmick. So yeah, I don't think that I've got another better way to say that or add to it, but we're definitely going to see an increasing number of, well, we've already seen, like, every company is trying to make AI its next big feat. Every company is trying to promise the world through AI. And look, I'd be lying if I said that a couple of projects that I want to build, believe me, absolutely, I want to include some sort of intelligent features that would be based on what people use the app for. To my mind, yeah, it's machine learning. But does that mean that I wouldn't call it AI? Of course I'm going to call it AI. If I ever get around to finishing one of these, one app in particular, if I ever add that capability to it, oh, you better believe it's going to say AI. Doesn't matter that it's just machine learning stuff. It's going to be called AI in the description, because there's nothing about it that can't be called AI. Let's see. We just got to keep voting with our wallets and boo all the poor implementations. Never give up. The thing is, no one's ever, like, there will be people who resist calling things AI. There will be people who resist things that use like big LLMs. But I don't think there's any escaping it, because too many companies have already seen what they can get out of the big AI. I mean, look at Adobe. Adobe went screeching ahead, got a ton of attention because of their they already did it with content aware fill, but then when they did this generative AI fill, are you kidding? That's blown away people. it's gotten so much attention, and it's sucked the air out of every one of their competitors. Fortunately, Adobe has also been absolutely miserable with this stuff. They've been mistreating their customers. They've been kind of dishonest about what they're doing. They've been stealing data from users. I posted that bit in the Discord about that. Look, the more companies see that they can get ahead by pushing the AI button, the more they're going to do it. And the problem is AI does work. That's the problem with this. It doesn't work for everything. It doesn't work in every place, at least not yet. And it's probably not going to get to be this magical superpower that solves all the world's problems anytime soon. But it is capable of doing a lot of stuff, at least when it's done right. And Austin, what competitors? I mean, to be fair, Seraph Labs did pretty well. Or is it just Seraph? Whatever. Anyway, the guys that make Affinity. Affinity has become pretty popular. And there are others. There really are. They're tiny, but they exist. And you know, that's talking about Photoshop. Adobe has also tried jamming AI into pretty much all of its other things, particularly Premiere. And the good thing the good thing there is they've done very poorly with it on Premiere. I mean, the features that they did are actually cool, but they're not things that others couldn't replicate pretty easily. So, you know, DaVinci Resolve has almost everything that Adobe has added. So yeah, they're just kind of better. And Final Cut is getting some of it, not all of it yet. But they're catching up, kind of. Apple, the giant company, is slowly catching up. And yeah, fortunately for video, it's less of an issue. But Adobe is also set to launch some new stuff pretty soon, which is probably going to shove them back into the front. And it sucks because I can't think of a company that probably deserves to be in that position too much less than them. There are some. There are definitely some companies that are worse, but Adobe's not setting the... Well, Adobe is setting the world on fire, but not in the good way. Anyway, trying to think if there was something else I had to say on that. But yeah, suffice to say, it's bad. Let's see. So Adobe giving all of us PTSD when we retire in the nursing homes. Diablo, I thought we already established none of us will get to retire. But seriously, yeah, I have this sneaking suspicion Adobe's going to be one of those that puts a lot of people out of work, and not for any sort of good outcome. We're heading into... We're going to be entering a stage not too far from now where companies like Adobe are probably going to become semi-necessary in order to do certain types of jobs. And I mean, that's already true, but it's going to take new forms. And all the people who are responsible for creating a lot of content are probably going to start hurting. So yeah, can't wait for that to happen. So let's see. Awesome. Nice. I like that. UBAI. I want my UBAI. Anyway, so let's see. I don't have much to say on these, so they'll go pretty quick. But Diablo did bring up the feature drop, the Android feature drop, which, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't have June's in here yet. So that's what, coming next week? Oh, I see. Okay, they released May at the end of May. Got it. Okay. So what did they add? Google Messages, you can now edit the messages that have been sent for up to 15 minutes, which, yay. Oh, yeah, oh, you're right. This is the Android feature drop. My bad. And yeah, these are just app updates, which I've complained about that many times. Anyway, you've got the ability to edit messages for Google Messages, which, okay, you know, and that is an RCS feature, not a like SMS thing. And you can do it for up to 15 minutes, which this is something that, of course, people really liked in iMessage. It's good. It should be here. So cheers to that. Instant hotspot, which honestly, I kind of thought this was a thing already, but I guess maybe was this only a Pixel thing? Or am I really misremembering, and is this just an iPhone thing that I thought that we had and didn't? Anyway, so it's, you know, nice feature. Yay. Call casting, so you can send a video call directly to a Chromebook or Android tablet by hitting the cast button. Neat feature. I like the idea of this. My only real question about it is it, one, was this not technically already a thing that others could do and just nobody did? Or, well, yeah, I don't know. It's good. It's good. I'll go with this is actually a neat thing. Well, yeah, I don't know. That's it. It's a neat thing. I'm sure some people will find a use for it. I won't, but it's just not the kind of thing that I'm likely to ever really put to use. They added more cars that you can unlock using a digital key. So, let's see. I believe Mini, Mercedes-Benz, and Polestar. And they've got new emoji kitchen combinations, which, cool. Oh, and also Wear OS updates. So we have Google Home favorites tile and complications. That's good. So I guess you can, yeah, it looks like you can just put those in as complications into whatever part of your watch face and tap on them to do, I'm assuming open up toggle, or maybe just tapping it is the toggle. I guess we'd have to see that to know for sure. And finally, Google Wallet supports PayPal. Honestly, I cannot believe this didn't happen years ago. Why did that not happen years ago? Like, PayPal is integrated with everything. And sometimes I think it probably shouldn't be, but hey, we're here now. That's the situation. It is a little weird to me that PayPal was not already integrated. But hey, I won't complain. Google be like, see, we advertise features. Yeah. Well, Google advertises features several times, which is the interesting thing. I expect a few of these things will be mentioned again at or not at I/O. We just had that, but probably the Made by Google event might get some of this stuff announced again, or it'll just happen in more blog posts that come out in the next couple months. We'll see. Okay, so anyway. The other one that... Oops, where did I put it? Ah, here it is. The other one that Diablo provided. This is interesting. But I don't think it is that telling. And this could become more or less interesting down the road. I think probably going to be less, actually, but we'll see. So, Diablo. At the Made by Google event, they demo RCS with an iPhone. Oh, if only. So, yeah, the millions of iPhone users have already been using RCS in Japan. So a popular app in Japan is the Plus Message app, and apparently it uses RCS under the hood as its communication protocol. And it is hooked into the carriers, which is kind of interesting because that's not... I mean, it's something that's certainly possible, but I'm assuming that the carriers may have forced Apple to support this to some extent so that they could do it. I'm not entirely clear on that, but nevertheless, basically this is a case where apps were just using RCS as their backing protocol for communication, which is good. I mean, that is a way that they kind of, I won't say worked around, because it wasn't a workaround per se, but this was a way for them to deliver kind of a universal protocol without having to develop yet again another messaging protocol. So it does support communication between the three, I believe it's three major carriers. It was KDDI, NTT Docomo, and SoftBank. So yeah, those are the three largest Japanese carriers. I can always remember Docomo. I can never remember the names of the other two, which is funny because SoftBank's the easiest actual name, but for some reason Docomo has stuck out of my head. I've known that name ever since before Android was even a thing, because some of the really interesting Windows Phone import export phones were coming out from NTT Docomo. Anyway, so yeah, they've been using the RCS standard protocol for messaging because it's already a standard. Is it necessarily the full standard? I don't know, but I get the impression they've been using it. They've probably been using the full Jive standard. Yeah, so it's a thing. Technically, iPhone users have been using it. Being that it's really only happened in Japan is kind of unique. It kind of leaves me wondering if maybe there's a possibility that other carriers could have already done this and just chose not to. And who knows, maybe Apple forced that, or maybe a Japanese law may have enabled this in some way. I'm sure there's a better explanation than just Japan did this, or sorry, this happened in Japan, therefore Japan is special. Maybe there's something more to it, but we don't have the details here. Regardless, this is I mean, it's I suppose good, but it doesn't, the thing is, it is still not Apple doing it. At the most, Apple may have made some changes to iPhone software to enable or support this to some minimal extent, but I imagine left it up to the carriers or the app developers to hash out the rest. What will likely happen, though, is this probably isn't going to change a whole lot. For anyone using this in Japan, this is probably going to mean that eventually one of these days they might either have to or want to switch to whatever ends up being the system default for supporting RCS. And there is always a possibility that even the Plus Message app might be, I'm not going to say banned, but I could see Apple maybe cutting off its RCS access so that they can be the one true provider. But whatever ends up happening, we're probably going to end up seeing some interesting results, but only in Japan. I don't think this is going to have a big impact outside of there. Yeah, I want to say I can see it, but I can't. I'm just not sure how it happens, if it would. More than likely, I'm pretty sure we're just going to see Apple very quietly, or as quiet as possible, launching their RCS support with the next major version of iOS. And in theory, they could probably launch it at WWDC next week. By the way, for those who have forgotten, next week is WWDC on Monday. There will be a keynote, and we will definitely be talking about it on RambleCast come Wednesday. So be ready. Not that it matters all that much, but coincidentally that day I also have the draft for a review to do, or to have finished, which will be the second of the Chipolo reviews. But no live stream. Austin, how dare you? But yeah, we'll be checking it out for sure. I have a feeling we're not gonna. Depending on how much stuff they puff it up with AI talk, it might be nice not to talk about it immediately. Or for that matter, if they really have a lot of stuff to announce, maybe it'll be better not to have talked about it on the day. But in general, it is always kind of nice to have an extra day or so, especially since WWDC. A lot of announcements have a tendency of coming out after the keynote. So as developer sessions start going up on the website, as they start sort of revealing other details, the developers who are watching this stuff tend to kind of highlight a lot of things, and you learn way more about stuff. And I have a funny feeling that we're probably going to be hearing quite a bit in the days following, probably the whole week, but in particular the couple of days following. Carson, how dare you suggest that I do a thing to violate their terms of service? I would never ever consider doing something like that. That's just madness. So, you know, it's just not going to happen. I swear. Game stream's probably resuming soon. But waiting for the chuckles to roll in, but may not get them. Anyway, yeah, so again, I just don't think that we're gonna know too much more about the RCS stuff. We may learn a few little details here and there from WWDC, and with the release of the iPhone like beta images. When did I create it? Oh, quite a while back, actually. Truthfully, I just did it so that I could watch streams, but very possibly just going to start using it for streaming. Yes, Diablo, exactly. But yeah, so maybe when people start tearing apart the iPhone beta images, we might learn a little bit more about how Apple's going to handle RCS, but I have a funny feeling that they're not actually we're probably not going to learn too much about it until the fall event, when they actually include RCS in the final image. I'm thinking they won't actually include it prior to then. So, and maybe I'm wrong. I'd like to be, but it just sounds like such an Apple thing to do, to refuse to support RCS until kind of the last minute. I mean, we're already past the last minute. They announced it nearly a year, well, not a year ago, but they announced it a pretty long time ago, and it will be over a year of waiting for it when it finally comes out. So, you know, we're definitely in that place where Apple has this done. It's ready, but they're not going to ship it till it's long past the due date. So, yeah, it is what it is. So let's see. I think that's it on those topics. Carson saying I should have capitalized the C and M. I mean, I'm pretty sure I still can. But we'll see. I haven't decided too much, because again, that channel existed mostly just for watching stuff. But it may find function for other things. I've been thinking about this for a while. Because I'm pretty sure at this stage they don't know, and they don't care. So let's see. What else? Not that anyone here is going to see it right away, but just to acknowledge it, the due date for my review, or for the draft of my review of the Chipolo 1 Point, the little tiny keyring tracker, that is actually due tomorrow. So I'm going to be spending tonight finishing writing that, editing photos, maybe taking a few more photos. And later I actually need to take a lot more photos, but that's probably going to happen after I turn in the draft. And then next week on Monday, it will be time to finish the card review. So I'll be working on those. My observations, anyone who has not seen the comments in Discord, we talked about it a little bit in there. So far, I mean, they're good. They do what they are supposed to do. I've had not the best luck with very precise tracking. So, yeah, they're not good at telling me like where they are in the house, like what devices they're next to. They're just good at telling me that they're near or far. And not that I've had to do this, but if I needed to find them, I can make them beep. So that's kind of the status of them so far. And of course, they do give you some ability to see range. So you can tell basically like, I'm really far away from this thing, or I'm closer. It's kind of that, you know, you're getting warmer, it's hot, you know, it's blazing, whatever. Like, it's that kind of a thing, which is helpful, but it's maybe not as good as I would have liked. It's certainly not as good as I hoped. It doesn't give you anything close to a range. It's just more, it's kind of close, it's kind of far. And yeah, ultra wideband, it's time. In a weird way, I kind of am sad that wasn't what we ended up getting. Especially seeing as it took a year past when these things were supposed to ship. I kind of think that by now we probably could have or should have had ultra wideband as the thing. So yeah, it just feels like we should be there. Other than that, let's see. They're both lightweight. The setup process is fast. It's not instant per se, but I mean, from when you hold down the button to turn it on and the pairing screen pops up on the phone, like that takes a second, if that. Like, it's really quick. And then you just have to tap basically the like an accept button a few times. I don't know, 4 or 5 times, and that's it. Like, that's all it takes. And then it is set up, and you can just you can throw the tracker in wherever and you're good to go, which, as I've described on this in a previous episode, in my mind, that is critical, because I think a lot of people are probably gonna like buy these in airports. Diablo, I'll have something to say on that in a second too. But yeah, I feel like if you're doing something like you go into an airport and you decide, oh, you know what, I don't have a tracker, but I want one on my luggage, just in case. You can, if you can go into a store or a kiosk or whatever, buy one of these things, set it up literally as you're walking, because that's how easy it is. You hit a button with your phone screen on, tap a few times, it's set up. You can quickly throw this into your bag or whatever and just keep going. Like, it's that easy. So setup time, frankly, I think opening the package containing the tracker takes about as long as it takes to actually set it up. So that's, well, actually, that's kind of me complaining that their package is a little annoying, but yeah, the reality is this is so simple that you can be up and running with it in 30 seconds, probably about 30, I guess, maybe less. It's certainly less if you're not bothering to stop and read the pop-up messages. So yeah, it's good. In theory, if everything is updated, this can be done offline. That's a question I do not have an answer to. I don't know. I did not consider even testing that, which I don't know that I might test that. I don't know. That might maybe come as a later test too. We'll see. So I don't know. Consider testing that. Maybe we'll add that as another note. Let me find my notes. Okay. So, okay, there's that. You also brought up stalking. So, let me tell you what I did. I have been walking around. I took this old review unit phone. It is the T-Mobile Revel 6 something. Anyway, I paired this with the card. Now, this phone has one Google account on it. It is a Google account that I've used for some testing purposes before, but it is not the account that any of my other phones have. Then on my I think I used the Pixel 8 for it. That's what I paired the small tag with. And I've been walking around with these two together for the last couple of days, or a few days, or whatever. I have not gotten any unknown tracker pop-ups on any of my phones. Now, I don't know that that means much because I haven't really left my house. I've gone outside and walked around some, but I haven't traveled like a good long distance. So I don't know that that really matters much. I don't know if it's really telling of anything yet, but so far, none of my phones have screamed at me about this. Now, is that something to blame the tracker for? I don't think so. It's something I kind of blame on Google. And I don't know if that's a fair thing to blame for, because to be fair, it's not like I've gone the super far distance. I'm staying on the property. So maybe it requires more travel distance to trigger something. And you know, I'll be driving 30 minutes come tomorrow afternoon. I'll be driving, which is unfortunately after the due date for the review, but I'll add that in later if it becomes an issue. Anyway, yeah, I'm not getting those notifications, and I kind of thought by now I should. So yeah, not entirely sure what to make of that. I may have to, and seeing as I'm doing a review on this, I don't know how much I really mention it in reference to Chipolo or not, but yeah. Carson, have I tried scanning for unknown trackers? I have not, specifically because I don't want to ruin the test. Because I think most people do not do a scan for unknown trackers with a lot of frequency. I think it's the sort of thing that people do if they're sitting around going, man, I really feel like somebody's stalking me, or I feel like, you know, some creeper might be chasing me around. So unless you're a particularly paranoid person, I don't think that, or you have some reason why you think someone's stalking you, I don't think you're going to be running that check. So I wanted to wait to see if I got any sort of notification about this while I'm moving around, because that's what we should be getting. So yeah, that's kind of where that's at. I'm waiting to see if anything comes up, because now is a bad time for Google to not capture that. So come tomorrow, like I said, I'll be driving at least an hour tomorrow, a bit more, and I'll be covering, I don't know, about 50 miles, 55, 60 miles, something like that. In case anyone's about to ask, no, this is not the trip to Portland. Portland is a much longer trip than that. Anyway, so yeah, I'll try to test it and get a little bit better sense, but at the moment, that's a thing that I kind of would have liked to see a little bit better results with. Though again, maybe it's just because I haven't physically traveled very far since I started this test. Otherwise, my other big complaint, and it's not a big complaint, but it is a complaint. This thing's pure white. So's this one. Or technically they're off-white, but whatever. They look so boring. Chipolo sells their spot versions, the ones that work with Apple's Find My Network. Those are in pure black. Only in pure black. They look a little bit better, but I could see why pure black is maybe also not a very good choice. But they sell their regular Chipolo trackers, their original trackers, in 6 different colors. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not sure that that's actually better. But what I really find myself thinking when I sit and look at this is, man, you really got to put a sticker on these or have some accessories to go with them or something, because they are pure white and they are so boring looking. Just aesthetically, compare it to the AirTags. Like, they have a neat looking chrome front with the Apple logo on it. Like, it actually has a look. And they're designed for accessories to go with them, which is kind of neat. I mean, it's not the best thing in the world, but it has its qualities. I just want these to look a little more interesting. Let me tell you, taking photos of these has been not fun. Definitely not fun. So yeah, I'm gonna take more photos for sure, but yeah, finding a way to make these look interesting is tricky. So yeah, that's I think about everything I really immediately have to say. Oh, and I did make a quick video, which it'll probably be in the review. I expect it will be. I did make a quick video of popping open the Chipolo tracker, just this one, because you can't open up the card. I do have a video of doing that just to show like how easy it is to change the battery. Unsurprisingly, it is pretty easy. Very notably, it also has crap for water resistance. It is IPX5, so basically you can splash water at it and it's hopefully okay. That IPX5 is about as low as you can go before you start having exposed boards, like exposed electronics. So yeah, it's not what I would call particularly resistant. Let's see, anything else? I think that's about it. So yeah, I've babbled for a while now. I think that's a good spot to close it up. I'm gonna go get some work done on this review, and yeah, that's about it. So I will be back this weekend with some gaming. That is the plan. There will be some Overwatch, some Fall Guys. You know the routine. Huge thanks to those who are supporters of the channel: Diablo, Carson, Austin, David, and Kirby Mermaid. Y'all are awesome. You're good, beautiful people. And for those that would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. And fun fact, oh, it just occurred to me I was going to mock Twitch for raising their price too. And I forgot to do that earlier when mocking Spotify and Max. So just pretend that pretend I hit all three. Anyway, so I hope you all have an excellent rest of the week, and I'll catch you possibly this weekend for some gaming. If not, I'll catch you in the next ramble. Good night, everybody.